This week on Catholic Pour Over.
Well, I love Elle. I just find her to be the best model of virtue. The way that she loved and the way that she made sacrifice was very noble. And she was serene and sober in her decision-making and in her way that she thought about reality and long-term decisions and what was most important here. And you could tell that a lot was going on in her head and in her heart. So I think we have to give a spoiler alert because we're going to be talking about Stranger Things Season 5 and Wake Up Dead Man. And in order to really do some pouring over theologically, philosophically of these shows and movie, we should warn our listeners and viewers that we're going to spoil some things, perhaps, if they haven't seen.
So if you haven't watched either of those yet, I would pause this, watch, and then come back.
That's right. That's right. So our last episode that we recorded in 2025 was with Matt and Sarah, which was awesome. But this is the first episode we're recording in 2026. And we agreed that during the Christmas break, we would watch two things on Netflix. So Stranger Things and Wake Up Dead Man. And here we are. So which do you want to talk about first?
So I want to go with Stranger Things because I was very excited to watch that, see how the Duffer Brothers would end the series. Mm-hmm. And so let's pour over that one first.
Okay, so what are your main themes? What did you find? What did you discover? What did you think about?
In watching through season 5, I would say 3 big themes stood out to me. One is the power of memory, the power of fear, and then the power of friendship.
Okay, let's start with friendship because that's probably the most obvious one.
Yeah.
I started watching Stranger Things during COVID, I think. Does that sound right? Because
Sounds
it's been
about
out
right.
for a while.
Yeah.
And one of the things I loved about it most was that, first of all, it took place in the 80s. And I was 4 through 14 in the 80s. And so I remember those days fondly. And I love the bikes and I love the friendship and I love the lack of cell phones and smartphones and all the distraction and just being outside. And I love seeing all those young people be friends and being out on adventures all the time. So that was pretty important to me.
Yeah. There were many times we'd be like, these kids are out doing whatever and like their parents have no idea, but that was childhood in the 80s. You just go out, you come back when it's time for supper.
Yeah. And so, of course, our Lord wants to be friends with us. He's also our Savior, but he wants to be friends. And St. Augustine in his confession says that his friends didn't make him do things, but whatever his friends were doing, he happened to do. And so it's really important who you hang out with. And there's a certain point in Augustine's life where because of his friendship, he stole pears and did dumb things.
Right.
But as he got older, the better friends he hung around, the better that he was too.
Yeah.
So what do you glean from the friendships that people had, or what were some of the better friendships in the show? So
I think the favorite friendship to me was between Dustin and Steve.
Oh, yeah.
So 2 unlikely people that would be friends, but because of their shared mission and, I don't know, getting and figuring out the Mind Flayer and Vecna, they became friends. But you see that in one of the episodes, maybe it was like one of the last ones, Steve and Dustin end up calling each other out. Mm-hmm. And then pushing each other in ways to grow. And I think that's a sign of true friendship, that you don't sugarcoat or bury problems, but you're honest with your friends and you push them to be better people. And I think Steve and Dustin did that for each other.
Steve was getting the ladder to climb over a part when that one room was melting, and Dustin's like, don't you do it, Steve, don't you do it. And before you know it, the ladder falls, and had he done it, he would have died.
Yeah.
But it was a good prophetic warning. Like he used his prophetic voice with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And Steve just called out Dustin for like not showing up to the one watch night and everything. And you're letting everyone down and like telling them to show up.
Yeah. Good friends call each other out, not out of anger or spite, but out of love.
Yeah.
To call people to be their best. So that's really good.
Yeah.
I love Elle. I think she obviously is the primary protagonist. Although there's so many little stories that go throughout there, I just find her to be the best model of virtue. Even in this last season, we were talking before we turned the cameras on that there was a lot more cussing, I think, in season 5. Now the kids are grown up, so maybe it's reflecting reality, but they use the Lord's name a lot. And
Yeah.
I was bowing my head a lot as I was watching this thing. They never dropped the F-bomb, which I thought was interesting. So that must have been intentional. But I don't think Elle ever swore in season 5.
I don't think so either.
And I think the way that she loved and the way that she made sacrifice was very noble. And she was serene and sober in her decision-making and in her way that she thought about reality and long-term decisions and what was most important here. And you could tell that a lot was going on in her head and in her heart, especially in the final scene there.
Yeah. Very introspective person. I really love the relationship that grew between her and Hopper, the father-daughter like relationship, and just how, and it shows even the character and that group of friends development over the years, like almost her pleading with him, like, trust me, like I know what I'm doing, and knowing that he was caught up in the memory of his own daughter and her death, but like, I'm not her, like all of that. And she was, I think, the model of virtue in the series. And your point that she didn't swear or anything, I actually didn't really realize that until you brought that up, but that there was a lot of that in the show, but not from her.
I am not a biological father, but I am a spiritual father. And I understand Hopper's desire to protect her, especially since he's lost one of his children before. And I think it was a great way to show when she was young. How old was she in the first episode? Like 7 or 9 or something. She was a girl. Now she's a full-grown woman, and she needs to say, like, you need to trust me in this. I've got this. And then she was showing that she was perfectly capable, even as they were training.
Yeah,
I've got this, and I could be faster. And so both of them were growing in their relationship with each other. And a lot of times there's tension in that, but that's not bad. I think the tension is real. They didn't sugarcoat it, and I thought that was nice. It was good.
Yeah. What did you think of Henry and Vecna and his story?
Oh, this is great, because I think this gets into free will, which is one of the great gifts that we have. Like traditionally as Catholics, we talk about having the power of intellect to know what is good, right, good, bad, right, wrong, true, false, beautiful, ugly, and then to choose between those two. And Henry had a pretty traumatic experience as a child in this cave with the guy who had the powers, right? Mm-hmm. And because of that experience, he had certain powers that got the best of him. And it was kind of like taking the apple, his original sin. It's Genesis 3. And because of this, he is affected long-term. And the question is, could he have repented? Because who enters into his memory? Is it
Will.
When Will enters into his memory, it says, you don't have to do this. And he says, no, with all my will, I actually choose this. Mm-hmm. And so do we believe him? Is that true? With all his will, did he choose this? And if so, it's a good presentation of what the church believes about hell, because hell is choosing not God, me, and I do this with all my will, and I have a choice to choose God, but I refuse to do that. And it seems like that's what he did. However, in that final scene, when he's on that spike and he's gurgling, it made me think of Dismas, the good thief on the cross. Is this possibly him trying to repent and ask for forgiveness? But we don't know, because Winona Ryder's character, what's her name? I don't remember. Joyce, good 80s name, lops off his head, but it takes forever because she's going through her memories of this too.
Yeah.
So what did you think?
Yeah, I saw in Henry's story, and then Vecna, and then Will giving him the choice there of him being enslaved to sin, basically. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm so far deep in this, there's no way I can get out of it. I got to live this way. This is just the way I am. Like, just giving up hope that there's any redemption or way to get out of it. And I saw that as with fear and memory and friendship, like another underlying theme of all of that, like the free will that we have, but the choice for sin or the supernatural life of grace.
Right.
And you see in Elle the virtue there, and also the way that the character development for Will. Like Will ends up having powers or is a sorcerer or whatever they call him, like Will the wizard or whatever. But that Will is able, by overcoming his fears and things and being in loving relationship with his friends, to take power, ability, gifts that he has and use them for good to help as well. I did not see that coming this season of Will
getting in the mind and being able to manipulate. And
you see like he gets the bloody nose and all of it when he uses his powers. Yeah.
So I thought that is it Duffer or Duffler? Duffer brothers were doing. They were using the underground as the shadow self and the psyche, and because it's basically the same thing as Hawkins, but different.
Right.
It's dark and the shadow side of the self. But then when they got in all that weird vortex thing and it's a black hole, I thought, I wish they hadn't done that, but whatever, they did it. I was thinking though that the number 12 was intentional, because in the Old Testament, it's the 12 tribes of Israel. In the New Testament, Jesus sits the apostles as the 12 who are now taking his gospel out to the world. Mm-hmm. Now here, Vecna is an antichrist kind of character, and he is dark and he is evil and he is self-centered. He's also been wounded greatly. And you wonder if that redemption was possible or if not. But I like that it was put on display that this was not just his circumstances or his trauma that he received, but we still, even despite all that, and that could certainly hinder our ability, but there is the power of free will that we are given that can make massive changes, not just personally, but collectively as well. Yeah. And I think the show was showing that is the case. Yeah. And the good and evil. And the best stories do that. I'm not a Star Wars fan, but I know Star Wars does that. Lord of the Rings does it. In a few minutes, we'll talk about Wake Up Dead Man. But the best stories are about choosing good or choosing evil and the repercussions that they have. And it's not as if these are always black and white, because there's certainly development of characters. You mentioned Steve Harrington. Yeah. I hated that guy early on. I hated his character. I thought he was this is the most annoying guy. And he became very dear to me. His character did.
Well, there was a whole thing leading up, like, is Steve going to die? Like, my kids going around the house, like, Steve can't die. He can't die. Like, they love Steve. Like, people would have shed massive tears if Steve did not make it. Huh. Yeah.
Well, speaking of making it, what do you think? What do you think happened at the end with Elle?
I do like the way that they ended it.
You do?
I'm glad that it wasn't like just some Dungeons and Dragons imagination game and the whole thing wasn't real.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think the way they chose to end it was also the best way to keep the audience happy.
Yeah.
And not choosing Elle's alive or Elle's dead. Like, you can make your own decision of whether you believe or not. I thought Mike telling the story and being the storyteller was actually a very significant thing. I actually saw like that whole thing. It reminded me of like the upper room and the apostles and their choice to believe or not. And like sending forth, and Mike was going to be a storyteller to just continue to tell the story and everything.
And he was on a typewriter.
Yeah. So, and I liked it. I thought there were even nuggets in choosing At Last as the song kind of there at the end, certain things. I think there were signs that gave hope that she is still out there somewhere.
First of all, I love the soundtrack. 80s music is hard to beat. And I may or may not have got a little misty-eyed when they played Purple Rain, when Elle was standing at the gate between the two worlds. But I wish it would have ended there, like cold. I didn't need all the resolution. I just needed like, and then they would have just rolled the credits and left you just aching. I like that as an ending better. I think it's more dramatic, and keeps you guessing, because people are wondering now, is there a secret hidden episode that's going to return? Yeah. And sometimes you say more than you need to. Sometimes little is better. So I'm sure people are debating this all over, but
Yeah.
I love the Purple Rain poop and the record and then the blowing up. And of course she made a gift of herself either way,
Right.
because she knew like she did not want her blood to be taken and for this thing to perpetuate. So it wasn't an act of suicide. It was an act of self-gift.
Right.
She was laying down her life to save everybody else.
Right.
And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Stranger Things season 5. If you haven't seen it, see it. Wake Up Dead Man. Now, I had to borrow someone's Netflix account, a brother priest, to make sure that I could prepare for this show. And so I noticed that Wake Up Dead Man already had 2 episodes. It's not a TV show. It's a movie series.
Right.
And they employ all these famous actors to take on these parts. And so the reason that I suggested this to you was after I watched it, I thought this would be great. People are talking about it because it takes place in a Catholic parish.
Yeah.
There's a Monsignor Wicks, who's an older priest character who's had some major problems in his life, and he's very mean, fire and brimstone kind of guy, and all his parishioners. And then they send this young priest who's a former boxer,
Right.
who does not want to do this anymore, but he wants to do this. They send him to this parish, and then all sorts of things happen at the parish.
I watched it based on your recommendation. I started in the first 20 minutes, and if you had not encouraged me to watch, I probably would have turned it off. But I'm glad I watched the whole thing because it does redeem itself as the story plays out.
Yeah, and I think sometimes as a confessor, because I'm used to being hit by a lot of sin, and this is the water that I swim in often, I may not be as sensitive to some of these things, because there is that one scene. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he just said that. I don't need these images in my mind.
Yeah.
But whether or not it's necessary, it does help as the film goes on to make sense of the scene at the end.
Yeah. And I'm also just cautious of like how things are going to be portrayed, like how these priests are being portrayed, how the church is being portrayed. And, is this really something I should be consuming? But in the end, I think the movie shows the real humanity of the priesthood and actually church parish life in a very, current, relevant, realistic way.
Yes.
That's the way some parishes can go.
And Father Judd, is it Judd? Judson or something?
Judd is like his first name, but Father Judd.
So he's the young priest, and he's not perfect, but he's good.
Mm-hmm.
He's a one who's striving for virtue. He really wants to bring the gospel to his people, and he wants what's best for everybody that he's serving, and he encourages them to celebrate the sacraments and tell the truth. And it's because he does that with Martha that the whole thing, and I don't want to give too many spoilers again, but we will get to the ending here. But she gives some information in the confessional that can't be revealed, but then actions take place because of it. And like the 5th episode of Stranger Things, where we see Henry open that suitcase and was able to receive that strange power in the rock, which changed him into whatever he was changed into. So too, there's a gem called Eve's apple. It's a diamond or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's like a gemstone.
And there's something about this gemstone when it has special power.
Well, I think it's just worth a ton of money.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the power, is that it's wealth. And if you have this, then you think you're going to be able to do all sorts of things. So whether it's a supernatural power or it's wealth, I mean, for Aristotle and Plato, and Aquinas picks up on this, power, honor, wealth, and pleasure, those are the things we make false gods. So you choose this, then you no longer need to go to God to satisfy your deepest longings, but that always ends terribly because none of these temporal things can actually satisfy you.
Yeah. In looking at Father Wicks and Father Judd, you see Father Wicks consumed with power and I think the things of this world and controlling the parish in that way, where Father Judd is trying to get to know the parishioners and bring them to Christ and remain a good, holy, Christ-centered priest. And that dichotomy almost unsettles the parish to some point. And Father Judd even gets consumed in like the murder mystery part of it. Mm-hmm. And a scene that really got me was when he was on the phone with like the lady at the crypt trying to find out information. And she's going on and on and on, and he's just trying to get information. But at the end, she's like, Father, can I ask you something? And she asked for him to pray for her mom. And that scene just got me. And it got Father Judd too, to remember what his purpose and mission is as a priest.
It's in Leah Labresco Sargent's book, which we'll talk about in a future episode, that by our vocations, we're meant to be interrupted.
Yeah.
And whether it's your children or my parishioners, that ought to happen. And those interruptions often remind us of who we are and whose we are. And so it's near the end then, the detective, even though he's figured the whole thing out, doesn't say who it is. He allows Martha to acknowledge her own faults there.
Yeah, because of Father Judd's example. Father Judd thought that the whole thing was, part of it was his fault, and he was going to go make a free will confession. And he made that much of an impact on the detective that he learned from his example. And
then allowed the mercy to flow there.
Yeah.
And that's the only time in the film that the proper absolution formula is used, or absolution's offered at all, right?
Yeah. And I think it's because it was a true, honest confession.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed. And then at the end of the film, this gem that was it was priceless, right? But it also means power, because if you have that and you have a lot of money, it's protected from going out where it can harm people, and it's put where it's supposed to be, right, and buried in Christ's heart.
Yeah.
There. That's like the last scene at the end of it.
Which is significance on the transformation of the parish, because at the beginning, there is no crucifix in the church.
Right.
But Father Judd builds it and brings
puts
one
the
and
crucifix
puts it
back. And it's not that there's not one in there and never was one. It's that there was one and now it's gone. It's like Nietzsche. It's not that God does not exist. No, we've killed God. He's dead and we killed him. So there was an act that he was once present. Here we've taken him down by our own will, and now by his own will, he's put him back up, and things are put back in the proper and right place.
Yeah.
So with both these shows, there's this notion that we are meant to be rightly ordered, and things need to be in the right place, and our decisions and our choices matter if we choose good or if we choose evil. But there's also, when we fail and when we get weak, hopefully, the Lord always shows us mercy, but hopefully we show each other mercy too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the themes of friendship, community, the free will, our memory, shame, fear, all of those were on display in both of these, but how love and God's grace help us and lift us to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Move forward together.
And I love the notion of memory in the life of faith and in the life of healing, because a lot of times if we have suffered traumas or hurts or pains, the Lord doesn't want us to forget that those things happen, but he wants to get back in there and heal that experience and let him know that he was there with us to take us then forward to the life of freedom, so that not only can we experience his freedom, but that we can take other people and show them how to do that too. And that's how grace works. And then to avoid trying to grasp the thing that we think is going to make us happy, when what really makes us happy is when we give ourselves away in love. Like Elle.
Like Elle.
Yeah, I believe.